preseason AP poll is out, and Georgia once again ranked #1. The Dogs will be looking to win the national title for the third time in 4 years. Georgia, as you see there, followed by Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas. And now the changes following the conference realignment. 8 of the AP top 10 come from either the Big Ten or the SEC. Look how that worked out. So welcome Stanford Steve to the show with Greg McElroy and Sam Acho. What's up, Stanford Steve? I want to start with you here. What stands out to you most about that first preseason poll?
Well, as you go down the poll, Laura, you look, SEC, Big Ten, Big Ten, SEC, SEC, SEC. Where's the ACC? With all that offseason of talking about who should have been in it, all the way down at 10. And just to see that there's 4 teams from the ACC in the top 25, but the top-ranked team is Florida State at 10, that's pretty eye-opening when you talk about what they're going to have to get back to in this new day and age of the 4 power conferences. So that's what stuck out to me.
I actually think the ACC is pretty good this year. I'm not sure it's necessarily reflected in the AP poll. Miami being at 19 is absurd, but I digress. Looking at the SEC, it's long been super deep. We understand that. Even in the 14-team era, it always had ridiculous depth. Now moving into the 16-team era, the rich get richer. Texas and Oklahoma, both newcomers, both in the top 16. 9 of the top 20 from the Southeastern Conference. 5 at the top 11, 6 at the top 13. And then if you want to go a little deeper, there is a really coherent argument to be made on behalf of Kentucky with what they bring in and what they bring back. And I think there's a lot of people that are super optimistic about Auburn as well. If I had to put together a preseason top 25 right now, Auburn would be in. I think they are looking right at an 8-4 season at the bare minimum with some of the additions that Hugh Freeze has made. So this team in this league, they can go 10 or 11 deep in the top 25 without really causing a lot of chaos. That's how deep it's become.
Yeah, and just take a look at the top 3 teams. And 2 of those top 3 teams, Oregon and Ohio State, play each other. Let's go to 4. 4 plays 1. Georgia plays Texas. So I'm most interested in those top teams, specifically in the Big Ten, that play each other. Michigan's got to play Ohio State end of the season. SC's on their schedule as well. And so the Big Ten teams at the top specifically, not only are they ranked, but they will face each other potentially multiple times when it comes especially to a Big Ten championship.
One of the most fascinating things is what we just witnessed right there in the Big Ten. You have the offensive dominance of SC, which is at 23. I think it's probably about right. If you want to have them inside the top 25 or outside the top 25, they're somewhere between 21 and 35 in college football versus the defensive dominance of Iowa. Both teams might, as we fast forward to the end of the year, have 8-4 records, but they might look really, really different in getting to 8-4. I think Iowa actually has a much better chance based on their schedule of having a really impressive win-loss record, whereas SC, challenging non-conference against LSU, challenging non-conference against Notre Dame, plus a Big Ten schedule, it's going to be really tough for them to dig in and be in that 23rd spot because they're going to have some massive wins, but also some big potential losses along the way.
And as we talk about all this, remembering the expanded playoff, there's just more opportunity for some of these teams, despite how they get to that end-of-season record. Greg, the first few weeks, what are you going to be watching out for?
Well, there's so many great games week 1. It's almost impossible to pick. I'm going to look at one that could have massive effects on the perception of both programs, and it's going to be Miami and Florida, partly because the loser of that game, there's going to be a very strong reaction, more so than probably most of the other outcomes week 1. If Miami loses, the negativity surrounding Mario Cristobal and the trajectory of the program is going to be unbearable. And the same can be said for Florida. If Florida loses that game, people are going to say, oh, Billy Napier can't get it done. He's done. Got to go. Got to move on. Can't possibly win with this guy. So I think the fallout from that game, Sam, will be fascinating to watch because that one carries a lot of weight for how each program's perceived moving forward.
Especially from the Miami side, you look at all the talent that Miami has been able to get, not only in recruiting, but even transfer. Cam Ward is unbelievably talented. If you go through another 7-6 season, last year they lost 3 of their last 4, it'd be frustrating. What I'm most excited about watching is that Clemson game versus Georgia. Clemson defensively is going to be elite, led by guys like Barrett Carter. And then at quarterback, Cade Klubnik, the maturity, the growth that everyone is expecting. Phil Moffitt at running back. taking over full-time for Will Shipley. If Clemson can find a way to pull off what many believe, I think most people believe as an upset, it could really shake up the perception of the SEC, the ACC, and all of college football.
Guys, it's time to really put your feet to the fire here, okay, and make some preseason picks when it comes to who's actually going to win these conferences. Who's going to end up being the national champion? We'll get to that in just a little bit, but let's begin with our conference champion in the ACC. Who do we have?
So I'm going with Clemson. It's been a couple years since Clemson has had the success that they wanted. We talked about their defense already. I think Cade Klubnik at quarterback's going to have a huge upswing. Went through the fire last year. So I'm choosing Clemson to win the ACC.
I'm going Miami. I think their biggest issue last year was running back revolving wheel and a quarterback that turned it over. But they really, if you look at it, man, they had the ball on their racket on multiple different games. And through the first half of the season, very few teams in college football are playing better than them. So, yes, the wheels came off down the stretch, but I think it's another year of tremendous high school recruiting, great front seven defensively, excellent quarterback in Cam Ward, and I think on paper they have the best roster. So I'm going with Miami Hurricanes to win the ACC.
Okay, now we go to the Big Ten. Of course, Michigan, the reigning national champion. Who is going to win the Big Ten, Sam?
I'm picking Oregon to win the Big Ten. And the reason why is not only their talent, but I think they'll be ready for a Big Ten championship game. Yes, they're transferring conferences, if you want to say it that way. But at quarterback, Dylan Gabriel is going to be elite. Their defense is going to be so much better under Dan Lanning. Will Stein, offensive coordinator, will help get all those players offensively ready.
I'm going with Ohio State, and I look at the regular season, and Ohio State has to travel to Eugene, will be tremendously difficult. Even if they lose that game, I like their chances in a rematch setting if they get Oregon again. This time it'll be in the Dome, it'll be in Indianapolis, and that would favor a team that can throw it all over the yard like Ohio State likely can. So I'm taking Ohio State to win the conference championship game, but I'd be surprised if they're undefeated when they got there.
Another conference with realignment really being a factor, the Big 12. So, Sam, you first. Who wins the Big 12?
I'm going Kansas, an underdog team. Now that Texas, Oklahoma are gone, I think that Lance Leipold is finally going to be able to get the consistency from an injury perspective. Jalen Daniels at quarterback is unbelievable, but he's had some health issues. If he stays healthy, him and Devin Neal at running back, I think will be able to help this offense even be more explosive than they have been the last 3 years.
I'm going with Oklahoma State, and I think a lot of people have kind of focused their attention on Utah. A lot of people love Kansas State with the addition of Avery Johnson becoming the full-time starter at quarterback. But I look at last year, and this was a team that didn't really have an identity in the first 3 weeks of the season, found that identity through Ollie Gordon, the Doak Walker Award winner. They bring back 21 starters, and hopefully their defense can collectively take a step under second-year defensive coordinator Brian Nardo. So I think Oklahoma State's kind of a dark horse team to win that Big 12 that not enough people are talking about.
So as you can see, we're filling out our college football playoff bracket here. Let's go to the SEC. Who wins the Southeastern Conference, Sam?
Texas wins the SEC, and here's why. Defensive studs on the edge. Barron Sorrell, he was just on Bruce Feldman's freak list. And then Anthony Hill, a young stud. Even Trey Moore, transferred from UTSA. Ethan Burke, their edge rushers are finally good this year. I think Texas' defense is going to help them win the SEC.
I'm going Georgia. I think they somehow find a way to get to Atlanta, and I still think at this point they have the fewest questions. Now, are there questions? Yes. I think the secondary will be elite. I think the linebackers will be elite. Front four, maybe not quite as good as we saw in 2021 and 2022, but offensively they should be top shelf, assuming they continue to grow from where they were a year ago. So I'll take Georgia in the SEC.
All right, how about group of five? Go ahead, Sam.
Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. Liberty was undefeated last year until their bowl game, 13-0, led by quarterback Caden Salter, who was the Group of Five National Player of the Year, but even more so, running back Quentin Cooley. Everyone keep your eyes on him. He's 5'7", 200 pounds, but he's a bowling ball and a beast. 1,400 rushing yards, top 10, 16 touchdowns. Amazing.
Yeah, Liberty made it to the New Year's Six last year, but they had no business being there. They got embarrassed by Oregon because they never challenged themselves in the regular season. I hope the committee holds them accountable this year. They might be undefeated, but will they be the best team? I don't think so. I think Memphis will be. If you look at their personnel, the additions they've made, the pieces that were back from last year's team, they gave Missouri all they wanted last year. While they lost the game, They still gave them all they wanted. This year they have a chance to do so against Florida State. They will challenge themselves. They might not be 12-0, but they will at least show us what they can do against the top teams in the country. And if you're going to book a ticket to the college football playoff, you better have at least played against a Power 5 team so we can see how you measure up.
How about who wins it all? The 2024 college football playoff national champion is who, Sam?
The Ohio State University. This is their year. 3 losses in a row versus Michigan. A lot of those players who lost are returning, so they're coming back for revenge. But defensively, Lathan Ransom, Caleb Downs, safeties are going to be huge for this team. So I like Ohio State to win national championship.
I'm also taking Ohio State. I think a lot of it has to do with the addition of Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. They're going to run the football. That's what Chip Kelly does. They have 2 unbelievable running backs, elite wide receiver. I think Will Howard will be solid, and they have a defense that can go with anybody at all 3 levels. So very, very bullish on Ohio State. I think they have the best roster.
Hey, that was incredible, guys. And that gets you ready for the season, which is just around the corner.